How are we feeling? Who's noticed the ego come in to play over lunch? Come in to go, hey, really? You're going to listen to this guy? Like, or whatever. So I like to know, because obviously that's why I said this is such a big one this week, this month, because it will really bring up some of the stuff. So I'd like to know, what are some of the things? Not because I want to fix it or improve it or get rid of it, but because some other people who may have had the same experience, whether they're in this room or watching on video, can relate to, oh yeah, I was experiencing the same thing. And it's just, sometimes it even gives you a little bit of reassurance. I mean, yeah, sure, it's giving the ego a bit of reassurance, but at the same time, you don't want to starve the ego. You don't want to kill it. Because remember, for as long as you think you're this body, you need to find love. Remember that. So you don't want to take anything away from it, because all you're going to do is just take some of the love away. But the ego will go through its ways of finding that love. So let's just hear what's come up for some of you guys, and then we'll pick up where we left off and come in for landing. Gaz is really interested in how I would land this thing. And I said to her, she goes, yeah, she goes, I'm really interested to see how you can land this, because she knows where I'm going with it. And I said, yeah, so am I. I go to her, watch and learn. And then she goes, oh, I'm watching. And I said, no, actually, I've got no idea. I don't know how we're landing this thing. Never know. I just take off and trust in the landing. All right, over to you guys. Big voices.
Mine was more of an assimilation as you're talking. Like, things was just dropping in with me before when we're in the room, more so than when we left for lunch.
Yep.
And it was a real aha moment that I can't even describe it, but it was like thinking that, you know, whole life there's lots of things that are missing, but within that infiniteness was the perfection, and that was the present, that's the gift.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
I also really love that the emptiness is actually completion and fullness, and I just really pondered on that. And man, like the things that I've done even to avoid that, but in reality that's really things sitting.
Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it?
I always say this, I am going to get this done somewhere down the track. I want to get some shirts, some Be-Free shirts made up, saying empty is the new full. Because that emptiness is the fullness that we're looking for.
Yeah. The judgment that we have around it, isn't it?
Yeah. Only because the ego sees it. Only because you're looking through the eyes of the ego, and the eyes of the ego sees the emptiness, sees formless, sees nothingness, and goes, whoa. Why does it go, whoa? Because the ego exists because of form, because of something, because of duality. So when the moment it sees oneness, something wrong down there, something wrong inside there. Can you see that? It's only in the eyes of the ego, but you can understand why. Okay. Anyone else? Just speak a bit louder.
I thought it was interesting when you talked about the emptiness, and so I want you to go away and feel that emptiness and experience how that makes you feel.
Yeah.
And when I felt the emptiness, I felt more of an expansion as opposed to the emptiness. And then I thought to myself, actually, it's not empty. You're realizing the greatness of it. So you feel a little bit and realize actually how great and big everything really is. And it was like, it's quite a beautiful thought.
Yeah. Yeah, because the moment you actually allow yourself to experience that emptiness and actually go and stick your, that's all you're doing is sticking your toe in there and going, oh, and then within that you feel this grandness, you feel this connection with everything. Just like when you do that meditation, the oneness meditation at the WTF, where you just, in that emptiness, and then I ask the question, what matters? Nothing. And there's just and all you can feel after nothing is just joy and fullness and love. And people think I took them there. They go, "Oh, that was a great meditation. It was so amazing. Thank you for taking it." I was like, it's always there. I just placed your attention on it. You just became aware of something that's always there. How'd you go, Kate?
I wasn't really a fan of my void.
You weren't a fan of your void?
No.
So what was your experience of it?
So then I did some work.
That what?
Then I did some work to not have a void. And I realised I was doing that. But I did it anyway.
That you did some work to...
So I was sitting there feeling my void.
Yeah.
And I got pissed off with it. So I decided to work.
I started to do some work.
Do some work.
I like work. Yeah.
And then I realised I was doing it, so I stopped working, and then I felt it again, and I was like, this is so shit, I just really need to do this work.
Yeah. Okay. So just notice that.
Yeah, and so, oh well, it's not good or bad.
Yeah. Just be aware of the ego as well when I say, because I just want... I want you to... I just want you to notice, because some of your egos are relieved that you don't have to do, anything about it. And you don't, right? Because at the same time as the ego is looking to do something about it, the ego is also looking not to do anything about it, to stay in denial as well and go, "Oh, you just said just watch it. I'm just going to watch you," And that's. Can you see what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what I picked up. So just notice that. Can you see how many different ways it comes? And I just said just to observe it. And yeah, it's a fine line, because you're thinking, well, I am observing it. I'm just observing it, but I don't have to do anything about it. And that's true. But can you see who's saying that? And that's all I want you to. The moment you see that, that's light on the shadow. The moment you're like, wow, that was my ego too, they went, well, I don't have to do anything about it. Just be aware. That's why Gaz is so interested in seeing how I'm going to land this, because when I land this thing, your head's going to be spinning for a little bit, I reckon. But
It's not so much the landing the landing is a bit interesting. What I'm interested to see is what happens after, because I know how clever your ego is, and how smart it is, and with what Amir's going to drop in at the end, it's going to be so profound. But no matter how profound it is, there's always ego. So that's what I'm interested to know, is what you guys go and do when, I believe you come back each month, and what you guys go and do when you have that month away from this, and how you hook yourselves into continuing to observe and be present and that sort of stuff. So that's the exciting part for me.
In other words, she doesn't think you can do it. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. All right, who else?
Freedom.
When you sat with the emptiness? Okay. Does everyone know where to go for the emptiness? They know straight away where it is, yeah? Did anyone have trouble in finding the emptiness?
Yep.
You had trouble finding the emptiness?
Yeah, but it was more so because the circumstances I put myself in during the lunch break. So
What was the circumstances?
I was
Oh,
working,
right.
sorting shit out.
Yeah. Okay.
But I also got some realisations out of how I was being inside what I was doing.
Do you want to share?
So all the stuff I was sorting out, I was on a Skype call to Manila, and I had to be quite stern with what I was trying to achieve. And so how I was being, like a year ago, that would have been my way of being all the time.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was I was just able to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
It wasn't running.
Right.
Finished the conversation, did what I had to do, and
So what do you guys reckon about, like, let's say when you're being stern? You know, when someone's being stern, is that ego, or is that?
Depends on what outcome you want.
Okay.
Like if it's a bit of agenda after being stern to get something out of it.
What if that's a reaction as well? Sometimes it's a reaction. Someone's being stern with you. So
Yeah.
you get stern back.
Right.
Depends on the scenario.
So it was a purposeful conversation.
Yeah.
And I was doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel to have any, like the emotions were flooding me.
Yeah. Cool. I just want you to realise sometimes, because sometimes someone is stern. Some people will go, well, that's not loving. Then that they're being stern out of ego. So it does depend who's using the sternness. So I just want you to make sure you realise that, because love can be very stern. Okay. So
But I think a year ago I couldn't have been like that.
you couldn't have been stern,
I couldn't have been like that. Couldn't have been stern like that
right?
without being flooded with the emotion.
Right. So you weren't reactive. You weren't reactive to being stern. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Let's talk about really quickly about doing, because I mentioned that the ego looks at doing. When it looks at what I want to have, what I want to do, when it continuously looks at what it wants to do, it can avoid actually sensing that emptiness. Yes? But there's a difference when the ego is not doing. There's a difference between the ego doing versus you as the one doing. I just want to become clear about that. So just in case you guys walk away from here and go, well, Amir said don't do anything, and I'm not going to do anything. If I can give you the example that I gave before, when it's the ego doing, it's the drop. It's like the drop is trying to move the whole ocean. Can it move the ocean? No. It can mildly influence around itself, but it can't. The drop doesn't have the power to move the entire ocean. So when it's the ego doing, it's the drop trying to move the entire ocean. When it's the one doing, it's like the ocean is moving the drop. You see, it's a very different experience. I'll tell you the feeling experience. When it's the one doing, you are experiencing an amazing beingness when you're doing that. People always ask, do you love to speak? It's what you love to do. And I always say, well, it's not what I love to do. Speaking is not what I love to do. It's what I love is who I'm being when I do that. Because in that moment, the ocean, me as the one, is moving through me. I love who I'm being when I do that. Can you see what I'm saying? The ego continuously just looks at the doing. There's no being in there. Who you're being is small. Who you're being is limited. It's you and the doing. It's almost separate. There's you, and this is the doing. When you're being what you love when you do something. So when I say I love who I'm being when I do this, me and what I do become one. Can you see what I'm saying? In other words, I become the words that come out of me. I become the feeling that I feel from within me. Do you get the difference? It's different. And one final point I will give you with the doing. When it's the ego doing, it's almost like you feel like I got to do this. There's an urgency, there's a push. when it's you as the one doing, you don't have that separation. You just notice yourself doing it. Does that make sense? It's very difficult to put into words, but you just notice it coming through you. You just notice yourself being one with what you do, whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that's true for you. It might be painting, it might be coaching, it might be speaking, it may be writing. Okay. So it leads me to this next component, which is that the ego is continuously looking to not just paint a story, but to hold on to a story. The story is very important to the ego. Why? What?
Justify what you're feeling.
Okay. Identification.
It's like fuel for it to continue on to the next story using an old one.
Just know that through the story, all right, you're telling the story, whether it's to yourself or to others. Really, you're always telling it to yourself. You tell others because you're telling the story to yourself. Because through that story, you're still getting recognition, significance, appreciation, acceptance, approval. The ego doesn't get that in the present moment. The ego gets that in the story. So there's something that happens in your life that's quite significant. Then the ego will come in and go, "Ooh, this moment was significant. I want to hold on to this moment." And builds, it's like a little snake that kind of, or like a spider web, what do you call it? Putting its web out? Yeah, spinning its web. The spider web spinning its web. It's spinning its web, and all the stories are interlinked. And like you're telling me before, like this story, that's how I got to this story, because I had this happen in the past, and then I had this, and that made me realize this, and it's holding the story, it's holding the story, and each story is linked to the next stories. And there, there was a perfect example. You just had a moment of layers and layers of love story, and you did it so brilliantly just to get it out in like 2 minutes. But why? But why is the ego weaving its importance or its link, its charges through the story? It's not about the present moment, but something happens in the present moment, and then the ego goes, "Oh, I want to hold on to this one," even if it's positive or if it's negative. Ooh, something, here's a new one, let's add that to the story, and weaves it into it.
It's seeking another dose of love.
It's seeking what?
Another dose.
Yes, it's through the story, it's ensuring that you get recognition, appreciation, acceptance, approval. Through those stories, it's getting that.
I did learn though through that experience recently. You know, then I got a bit
But the
time.
part of you that I'm talking to doesn't need to learn. The ego will continuously learn, and even it's through its learnings. You know, well, I'm never going to do that again, right? But that's still the story. You may do it again, it may be completely different the next time you do it. Just be aware, because the ego goes, "Oh, I learnt my lesson, I'm not going to do that again."
And then it does happen again.
Which part of you needs to learn lessons? The infinite part or the finite part? So good for you, ego, you just learned a new lesson.
Just the moments where it reinforces the perception of itself. So either moments where you did the ego things that was actually creating what it seemed to be,
Mm-hmm.
or the moments when the opposite happens, but just kind of the moments where it's kind of shifting one way or the other.
Yeah.
That it creates, that it hangs to as being kind of,
So that it's continuously interlinking all the stories. Yeah.
So Amir,
Yeah.
the role of the ego then is just to hold us in illusion. Like we all know that the ego is good and bad and it's woven into absolutely everything. be aware of it. It's like being trapped. Because most of us, at some stage or another, have actually seen that everything is ego. You know, I've done that through spiritual stuff. But you can't step out of it. So, what are we saying? That the ego's role is just the tool that holds us in duality until we go, had enough. Don't want to do this anymore. Oneness is
When this becomes one with the ocean, there's no more ego. This is the point I'm getting to in a moment.
So it just keeps bringing us back to that point of going, this is the illusion. This is
Yeah, but the ego only exists because of the illusion, and it's living through the illusion to find a form of love.
Didn't you say before that the ego will always be there?
Yes, will always be there.
So then are you just not there?
Okay, let's go there. When this is the drop of the ocean, and the drop perceives to be this jar, this bottle, you have the ego. Because you, as the drop, now perceived to be separate from all the other drops. Okay? When this bottom of this, when you open your heart, open your mind, and become conscious again, when you come back home to yourself, the bottom of this becomes bottomless. What happens to the drop? So what happened to the ego then? Did the ego disappear? Hey? No. No, it's not. It's no longer, because it's no longer the drop going in and out. It's the ocean going in and out. It's the entire fucking ocean going in and out. It's no longer the drop.
So it can't be a personality or an ego.
So what happened? So can you see? The drop and the ocean became one. The ego and the one becomes one.
So the ego has to become part of the oneness as well.
Well, the ego, and this is where you're going to get to. The ego is the one.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's the matrix. It's the third series of the matrix. Where it's behind the mechanics is the light.
Well, here's the thing. Let's place our attention on the truth. If everything is one infinite energy, do you believe or do you feel for yourself, not because I'm saying, that everything is one infinite energy? Then if everything is one infinite energy, then what does that say about the ego?
It's part of it. Can't be outside of it.
Right? So understand one thing. It could say it's part of it, or you could even go further and say it actually doesn't exist.
So there's no perception that's separate.
Now, the ego, listening to this, loves this. Yeah. You don't need to get rid of me. I don't exist. So this is where Gaz is like, I want to see how you land this. Right? Listen. The reason the ego is webbing, spinning its web through and linking all these past and future stories that haven't happened yet, stories that have happened. All right? And linking all these together. Bad stories, good stories, doesn't care. Because through all of them you're getting recognition, appreciation, acceptance, approval. You know, I'm a victim, I'm not a victim. What's the opposite of victim? Hey? Perpetrator, victim, whatever you want to call it, right? It's spinning its web through all those things, right? It does that. The ego is doing that to create its own existence. The ego is doing that. I say this at the WTF. So therefore it exists. Which part of you is looking to exist? Which part of you is looking to exist? Don't just go to the answer you know. Yes, it's the small part. But why is it looking to exist? Sorry?
Isn't the truth looking to exist?
No, the truth exists.
Yeah,
The
but
truth
it's not
is.
recognised as existing, doesn't it? There's,
It's the part that
Oh, Karen. Nah, I don't believe that came from you.
it's the part that seeks love.
Hey?
It's the part that's seeking love.
it's like, imagine in other part that experience it again.
It's very simple. Again, it's very simple, very simple. Why does the ego look to spin its web through the stories? Because then it will exist. Why would something look to exist? Because it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as ego. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's our excuse for not looking at the little quiet one that's been there the whole time.
It hasn't.
Now, hear me out, because it's a fine line. All right? The moment you came into existence, the moment you were, let's not even use that word in that reference, the moment you came into this physical body, you, as the one, manifested yourself to be the physical body. You then put power in believing that you are the physical. You didn't come here as a physical and have an awareness that you are still the infinite being, did you? Why not? No. No. Why? Why did you have to lose yourself? Why couldn't you just come here and morph yourself into this body and be infinite? Because there couldn't be the two infinites anymore. You had to believe that you are this body. You had to put power and perceive that you are this body. So therefore, there is another part of you that you perceive to be completely separate to you. You had to lose yourself in this body before you can find yourself. So there can be two. But the moment you absolutely believed that you are this body, you as the one then went and drew another part of yourself and manifested it to be the ego. Because you as the energy, all you did is manifest a part of yourself into this body. You manifest another part of yourself into that body. But the moment you believe that you are this body, you also then drew out more part of your energy and created this thing called the ego.
So it's just our conscious mind. Oh, well,
Okay, I'll break that down in a moment, because consciousness is the one that manifested you. Okay? You as this body. You manifested yourself into this body. You then also manifested this thing called the ego. Right? The body now place your attention on the truth here. The truth is everything is infinite and everything is just one energy. So therefore, this body is not even here. The one, in the beginning there was one infinite energy. This one infinite energy, you, manifested itself in its own imagination into bits, into drops, in its imagination. This is not, the physical is not here, nor is the ego. It doesn't exist. That's why the physical fights to exist. That's why the ego fights to exist. It will fight for it. It will fight each other. It will fight itself. It will do whatever it can to exist. At the beginning, you just manifested this thing called the ego to find you love while you're temporarily believing, perceiving that you're this body. But this part of you that you manifested to find love through form began to build its own existence. It doesn't actually exist. Why do I know that? Because it's looking to find its existence through the story. So something that looks to find existence it actually tells you it actually doesn't exist. Now, it's a very, if you're hearing this with your ego, you're like, right, it's kind of dangerous because you're just like, well, it's not real.
Just a dream within a dream.
It is a dream within a dream.
Groundhog's Day.
It feels real.
It's meant to feel real. You put power in it so you can feel. Now, what happens when the drop becomes the ocean? Now you're experiencing yourself as the one. Then you're now moving this body. You're no longer the drop trying to move the ocean. You become the ocean moving this body. This is what it means to live infinitely. This is what it means to become infinite. You came here to become infinite. But you think, and you can sense that part of you that's come here to become infinite, but you think you came here to be infinite in the story. No, the story's finite. So then, check this out, okay? This is why what I'm sharing with you right now can be a real mind fuck. Because if you're the ego right now listening to me, it's going to become a head spinner for the next couple of weeks for you. And that's why Gaz goes, I'm interested to see how they go afterwards, right? Have you guys noticed and had an experience for this for yourself? I know I've said it, but have you experienced this for yourself? As you've taken this path, some of you on OMG, this is your month 6, month 7, or month 11, month 12, some of you month 1, month. But the point is, have you noticed that as you've taken the path back to yourself, all right, as you started taking the steps towards consciousness, or whatever you want to call that, right, have you noticed that as you became more and more conscious, your ego became more and more clever? Have you noticed it? Like, for example, the ego would go, well, that's just an illusion. It doesn't really matter. Right? Now, the truth is, yes, it's an illusion, but that's where you find what matters. Because now you know that no longer matters, then you find what... But the ego goes and uses it as a denial. Well, I don't need to worry about money because it's not really real. You see, that's the voice of the ego. Because, well, why the fuck did you manifest to pay money for things? You're the one who manifested it. So now you're saying it's not real? See, that's the ego. You manifested to pay for things. So you can't say, well, money's not real. Yes, it's not real. It's energy. It's who you are. But you manifested a story where in this story you pay for things. So have you noticed that the ego becomes more and more clever? For example, another example, suddenly you go, you've never probably even used the word do what's true for you. Maybe. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But then as you become more conscious and going, yeah, I need to do what's true for me, then this feeling comes which is completely heavy and it's not what's true for you, but the ego will go, yeah, this is true for me. And you've gone and done it and you're like, totally was not true for me. But you were so convinced it was true for you. But you're like, my God, the ego is now speaking in my language. Who's noticed that? Who's had direct experience of it? So the more conscious you become, so does the ego.
It also feels like it's sort of like a battle that what Gaz was saying, it's fight harder to take you away from the moment.
Okay, but why? Why? Yes, I know it fights harder for all that. I know that's right. And yes, the ego needs to take you out of the present moment to have control. That's because it doesn't exist in the present moment. That's why. You come to the present, the ego's not there. You do what's true for you, which means you have to be in the present, the ego's not there. Suddenly the ego doesn't exist then. So it's not so hard to believe. There is moments where you're experiencing absolutely no ego. Now, there is a slight ego because you're still experiencing yourself to this body. You're not suddenly going to get up and just your soul's going to get up and the body's... And you're like, oh my God, I'm still sitting there. Get back. you know, you're still going to have some ego where you're still believing that you're moving this body. You see what I'm saying? But it's a small percentage. Where before you were 100% in ego, you might be like 3 or 4% of ego. You're still, you know, going to be limited by the body. You're not going to live forever as the body. You're still going to go to the bathroom. You're still got to do the things that, you know, you're still going to get older, get wrinkles. You know, maybe you have influenced that, but it's still a percentage of ego is still there, right? Why does the ego get more and more conscious as you become more and more conscious? Boom.
What's that? Sorry.
Because it's the same thing.
Because it's you. When I say you are the ego. You want to get to know the ego? Have a look at yourself. It's not a bad thing. Have a think about it. You know, the more and more wiser you become, so does your ego. And you're like, fuck, it just keeps catching up.
Good dog trying to chase its tail.
So you may be asking, well, where to from here?
Why bother?
Well, you know, this actually becomes more easier when you realize, oh, this ego that I keep talking about is actually who I am as this physical, as my identity. But you're not the physical. I keep saying that. I keep saying you are the one, but you're not the physical. But, you know, just understanding that this is where the ego, this is it. I'm looking at the ego. It's the part of you. How many times have you heard me say in the WTF? The only thing that was ever born or dies is your ego. It's right here. But the ego likes to make it something else. And goes, well, I have this part of me that's the ego. But that's you as the ego saying that. See, listen to what I'm saying. You as the one doesn't get more and more conscious. Why not? So which part of you is getting more and more conscious? So put that in your pipe and smoke it. So then, the ego must be going, well, what's the fucking point? What am I meant to do with this, Amir? You give me this, well, what do I do? What do you want me to do? Walk out there and do what? See, this is a step, let's call it forward for you. Because you begin to realize that, okay, it's almost brings the ego into tangibility. It's like, I gotcha. Oh, no, joking.
It demystifies it, though.
You know, all that there is left to do when you realize everything that I just said. And again, maybe Gaz may share us some insights about, because if, like I said to you, and I'll remind you, if your ego is sitting here going and listening as the ego, rather than, this is what I say in the WTF, do not listen to my words. Instead, listen to where the words are coming from. In other words, feel the words. If you can feel the words, it's dropping in. If you're listening to the words, and there may be part, some parts you are, some parts you're not. If you're not present and you're listening to the words, then the ego is taking that in, right? But the ego doesn't exist, right? But you created it to exist. Listen, I don't know where this I don't know where this leaves you. But for me, all I knew to do was to come back home to myself. And when I realized that emptiness that I am labeling and resisting and avoiding is home, then from then on, when I knew that was my power, I did nothing but just went for it. I knew that everything else here in the physical world was ego. Until I come home to myself and I no longer become the drop, then I become the ocean that moves the physical. I'm no longer the physical. I speak through Amir. I am no longer Amir. And I also receive what is spoken through Amir. I receive it through Monty and through others. One energy. You don't need to understand this. It's a big head spinner. Don't try to understand it. If anything, grasp the importance of visiting that empty space. Because what happens, the reason I said to you that you'll never get rid of the ego is because the ego is you. And even if you transcend the body or transcend the ego, what that actually means is the drop is returning. The drop in the ocean are forming into one. You never got rid of that drop. It's not like you go back and drop, that's it, I'm taking you out. No, the drop and the ocean become one. So therefore, you will never get rid of the ego. That's why I made that statement before. It's just the two voices in your head become one. The identity and your source become one. You melt into one. But you're still alive. What I'm describing is what most people think, well, that's death, what you're describing. No, 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 no. The drop comes back to the ocean, but the jar, the physical, is still there. Now you're an infinite being, playing in a finite world. And then another part of you wakes up. Now you have two infinite beings playing in a finite world. There, when you become the one, you're no longer governed by the ego. Then you realize that, geez, I really didn't need any strategy. I really didn't need to protect this, hold this back, control this. I can manifest whatever I want. I should say, I can manifest whatever I love. Is it a journey to what I'm describing? Absolutely. But I didn't want to describe to you half the way. I want to describe to you the whole journey. Why is it a journey? Because we made the ego real. Because you made the physical more real than the non-physical. Soon you get to a point where the non-physical becomes more real than the physical. Break this down. Watch this over and over again. You'll even logically understand it. The part of you that's looking for existence. Well, is the ego looking to build identity? Yes. Is the ego looking to build existence? Yes. Well, why is it looking to build existence? It's very simple. Because it doesn't exist. Well, why is the ego getting more and more smarter as I am getting more and more smarter? Or more and more conscious as I become more and more? Oh. Is the ego me? That I've made out to be this other thing? Just like how the ego makes the universe. You know, I put it out into the universe. It thinks it's separate to the universe. And then in the program I go, well, where are you putting it out to? Who's the universe? Could it be that I am the universe? Could it be that I am the one infinite energy? It's the same kind of thing that's happening here. But it's much more difficult to go, could it be that I'm the ego? But could you say, try this, could it be that I'm the one? That sounds more, yeah, I like that one better. I'm the one. Could it be that I'm the ego? It's not probably a question you never even asked. But have a look at your journey. Why are you getting more and more? Why is the ego becoming more and more conscious? And this part of you that I'm talking to you already is conscious. It's already infinite. I told you, this infinite part of you, or something that's infinite, cannot suddenly be infinite. It's always infinite. It always has been infinite. It always will be infinite. You grasp that at the beginning of the day. So if that's true, if something that's infinite has always been infinite, always will be infinite, and is infinite, then how can you come to become infinite? You already are. You already are infinite. You already are the one. Now, I know your ego's going, yeah, but I'm not really. But one day you will go, one day what you know and what you believe will become one. Right now, a lot of the things that I'm talking that's formless, you know it. You know to be true. Because why do you know it? Because the one in you feels it. When I'm speaking from the one in me, the one in you resonates and goes, I know that to be true. I know it. I can feel it. It feels true. And it feels like I've always known it. Why? Because you're infinite. Of course you've always known it. It's always been there. I've always known it. But then this doesn't believe yet. Why? Because it's got too much web in the story. So what do? What do you do to take the webs out? Well, the story will come up. It will rock your world. And then you go and dive into the emptiness. What happens when you dive into the emptiness? Remember we spoke about this a couple months ago about reclaiming power. To reclaim power, you need to give space to the charge. When you give space, and we talked about this manifestation, when you give space to the charge, it allows you to become one. What happens when you become one with the charge? It neutralizes. Why? Because it's back in oneness. The charge exists because you're in duality. Something can be a charge, a negative or a positive charge, because it's in duality. But if you become one with it, what happens to the charge? So, look, does this mean you're going to walk out of here without an ego? No. It does not. It's like when you do the WTF program. Does it mean you're going to walk out enlightened? No. But you know it to be true. So that when you place your attention on the truth, you will feel that. You will resonate that. I mean, probably no one's ever put what I'm saying to you across the way you're receiving it right now. But somehow it must feel true inside of you. Who feels it to be true? See, somehow you feel it to be true. It's just a matter of these two coming together. That's the journey. When you get to a point where you know something and you believe it, then you can live it. Or some people do it the other way around. They go into all the personal development courses and they're trying to change the belief. You just got to believe it, you just got to believe it. But they don't know it. You've got to come and bring the two into one. You can hear crickets. Is that crickets? What was it they can? It's so quiet now. It's just crickets in the background. My mum told me once, why do you think at 3 in the morning it's so quiet? And I go, because everyone's sleeping? She goes, no. because the egos are sleeping. I mean, you notice that, right? Like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, it's not just quiet, there's a stillness in the air. It's just like crisp stillness. You're just like, all the egos are... You're going to start to see it. As your ego becomes more and more smaller, everyone's egos becomes more and more bigger. And you'll start to see it, and you're like, oh, wow, look at that. But it's not a judgment or anything. You're just noticing the ego. Yeah, you guys notice it already. You know, you're in the streets and you notice people just being moved by their ego, which only exists because they perceive to be this body. But otherwise it doesn't exist because, why doesn't it exist? Because everything's one energy. This body's not real. But if you make this body real, then the ego exists too. If you find it supportive to tame and discipline your ego and bring balance in your life, I strongly suggest you do that. I suggest that you find balance into your life. It's how my mother, the first thing that my mother taught me is to find balance. In other words, should get me to create order into my life. Whether it was in my bedroom, in my business, in my finances, just create order. Most of you heard the story. She used to clean my bedroom every single day. Every single day she used to clean my bedroom. And one day her friends went, why do you do that for him? She goes, so he can learn to clean his bedroom. And if my mum's friend went, the only way he's going to learn to clean his bedroom is if you get him to do it. She goes, no, 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 no. I show him what it's meant to look like. Then he can't have a dirty room. Guess what happened when I moved out of my house? When I moved into my own house? First day I went there and I looked at my bed and I was like, my bed's undone. Something felt weird. It's like, I've got to do my bed up. You come to my house, it's just everything's clean. I'm not like a clean freak or anything, but there's an order. You go into my office, you see the guys in the office. As soon as there's, you know, it's funny when you can tell, you can always tell when we have someone new. We have someone from our American office who's come to our Australian office. His desk has just got piles of stuff in there. I went in this morning, and it's Brian who will be editing this later. And I went, Brian, first thing, I get rid of all this stuff. You're taking up space. Create order. The way I help create order in Brian's mind is by helping him creating order in the physical. So does it mean the physical is not important? No, it's very important. Create order. Create order in a balance in the way you eat. Create balance in the way you think, in you know the way you exercise. It's important. It's not that it's not. Because if you can tame the ego, if you can get closer to the balance, the up and down becomes less. When you're at the closer you are to the center of you, the more you can then take that leap and transcend the ego. If your up and downs like this, you're experiencing major up and down, you're not going to be able to make that leap. It's too much up, too much down. You've got to get this stabilized. So therefore, it's important to have tools, techniques, or methods that will help you. Meditation is a tool, technique, that will help you find your center. All I'm saying to you, though, is the truth of who you are doesn't need all that. But for some to realize the truth of who they are, they need to find that balance first. So it just depends where you're at. If you've already created a lot of balance in your life, then you're already ready to make that jump. And make that jump, what I mean by that is transcend the ego. If you're experiencing major ups and downs in your life, and you're really struggling to live what I'm saying, I would strongly suggest to go and see this lady to my left, Gaz, because that's what she does. She works with your ego. That's what OMG Intensive is. And who's here done OMG Intensive? Well, completely fucked Kate up. Yes, yes. Okay, questions, comments, shares. Gaz, do you have anything to add to that?
Just good luck. keen to see what happens in the month to take you out of the moment, but just, this is a point where you have to be very, if you can be present, you can move through it. If you can really continue to remain in the here and now, because this is the part where when the ego is about to be found out, it will do everything in its power to make sure that it's not found out. This is how it works. This is the role of the ego.
And it hides in the story, and the story is not the present moment. So guess when it's most important to be present? The moment you're sucked into the story. That's when you bring it to the present. But who's bringing it to the present? But ultimately, the ego is not a bad part. It's just a part of you that's limited. Ultimately, the ego and the one become one.
This is all Matrix 3.
I don't know. I can't remember Matrix 3.
It's multiplying and getting stronger and stronger. It's just the ego.
Is it?
And then when he finally comes into his presence and stands in his truth, and he actually sees him, and he goes into what I call ultimatum, and he just does his truth, and he shatters, and they all fall. They all become part of him.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I've seen that part.
Lord of the Rings.
Which part of the Lord of the Rings?
Well, it's all about ego. I was watching the other day.
Precious.
Like consumed.
What I would suggest, Malcolm, this is where your head kicks in. It's like, okay, well, what do I do with this? Like, what I would suggest is just to observe. Last month, I spoke about manifestation. And I said the best way for you to grasp and experience how manifestation takes place is for you to observe manifestation. So the moment you wake up in the morning, you're manifesting yourself into form. To observe that every month. You know, you're walking into the street, you're manifesting as you walk out into the street. Okay, so the first thing, the best way for you to experience what I'm talking to you about is to observe it for yourself. So when you walk out in the street, just observe the voice. Just observe what the voice is saying inside your head. That's all you're doing. You get to a point where you start to where you become the observer observing. At that moment, you know, that's what it feels like when you're beginning to become the drop. That's what it feels like when the drop is becoming one with the ocean again. Because it's just like, well, who is the observer and who's the observer?
If you see yourself in the story, is that when you go into that place in yourself?
That's when you come into the... Listen, I spend a lot of time sitting with that emptiness. It's now a total joy, you know, because when I was looking at it with my ego, I was thinking, oh my God, like, and I was just, I didn't even know what it was. I just didn't want to go there because it was my ego looking at it, right? But now it's just that emptiness. It's bliss. Like, and that emptiness is before I get up on stage, before I start speaking, before I sit on this chair, I connect to that emptiness. I just connect to nothing. And then the first thing that pops up in the nothing is what I speak about. I sit there, empty, and if there's nothing that pops up, I sit there and be quiet. Even when someone asks a question, when I'm speaking on stage or even in this audience, in this OMG circle, if someone asks a question, I may know the answer. I as the identity, because I've said that answer before. Okay, but the practice for me is to let the answer be spoken, all right, and then let the answer be realized and then speak from the silence, rather than go, oh yeah, I know the answer to that. Da, 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 da. It's like, I think you asked a couple of questions to me, and when you asked a couple of questions, the moment you started to ask the questions, you may be halfway into it, it's already coming up. So normally I'll go, well, this is da da da, and I'll explain it. But it came to say, well, why do you ask? And then whatever I felt is what I speak. But this begins to happen so fast that you don't even notice it. That you can actually start confusing that you think it's you speaking.
Yeah, I had the experience just because that night she started to start, she was asking me many years ago,
Mhm.
and I just said it out loud, and I even said to her, I can't believe I said that. I actually know that I needed to hear that, not you.
Yeah.
It was weird. We kind of called.
Well, that's what we have other people for. We manifest others to be able to project and to express whatever's true. To experience our reflections. So the practice for this month, the homework, is to continuously just try to remind yourself as many times as you can just to observe what's going on. Especially when you're in the story, just observe it. Even if you pick out, because a lot of times you probably forget. That's what happens, right? Because you get stuck in the story, and when you're in the story, you forget. So even if you pick up a day a month, a day a week, where you just focus on that day, working on yourself. And when I say working on yourself, just observing what comes up. And spend a good 1 to 3 hours. If it's a Sunday for you, it's a Sunday. If it's a Wednesday evening, it's where you just sit in nature, where you're not going to be disturbed, turn your phone off, and just sit. Just sit in the emptiness. For those who get bored, and you're sitting there and you're going, oh, what the fuck am I doing here? You just told me to sit here. That's your ego, that is your ego avoiding to go into the center. It's like, I'm bored. What am I doing here? You're still in your head. I didn't say sit and just entertain thoughts in your head. Just sit, and when you sit and you allow yourself to feel, it's just almost like you just go, you just drop in. This happens for people in the WTF experience when we do the oneness meditation. I say to them, if you're noticing a lot of thinking happening because they're trying to think through the process, I say to them, just notice your thoughts. Be okay with the thoughts being there. That's all you got to do. So they just notice the thoughts and they're okay with the thoughts and they just sit there. And afterwards they come and tell me. They go, I was just sitting there and I was just okay with the thoughts and I was getting bored and I was just sitting in it. But again, I kept just being okay with it rather than trying to get rid of the thoughts. And then suddenly just something just went, it's like the ground just opened up and I just dropped into these feelings. I spent a lot of time with that space. I didn't come here. This feeling didn't come by itself. I worked on myself quite a lot. Whether it was working with my mum or getting support of some, like you guys are getting right now through these videos or through this circle. But then remember, OMG, the impact is not what happens on OMG day. The impact is what you do afterwards in the month. In the month. So my suggestion for you is spend a good 1 to 3 hours somewhere in the week where you just sit. Go sit in nature somewhere, turn your phone off, don't be contactable, and just sit. Now, I could tell you what to do in the sitting, but it's almost then you'll try to find a process into that doing. So the ego is trying to make it into a process. So I'm just going to tell you just to sit. And just sit and feel. And if the emptiness arises, feel the emptiness. If the emptiness doesn't arise, then just sit. What do you reckon? You can do that? Take your ego with you. It's coming with you either way. And the rest of the week, the other practice, just continuously observe what the voice is saying. Just notice it. Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Just notice it. All I said, notice it. Do not judge it. Do not judge it. All you're doing is observing. Observe the ego. Observe yourself. That's all you got to do. To get to know the ego, all you got to do is observe yourself. Observe if you're manipulating. Observe if you're playing games. Don't judge yourself and go, oh my God, I'm terrible. No, just observe. Observe yourself through your food, through your cooking, through your eating, whatever. Just everyday things. Don't go and try to make any big decisions this month, my suggestion. Because you probably do a few things out of ego. The ego will continuously show up, like Gaz says, because it's about to be found, so it just continues to. So then you think, oh, I've got to make this big decision. I suggest just this month, don't make any big decisions. Just look at just observing and making the little decision. Notice the little decisions you're making every day, and notice how you're feeling. See, there's great power in this exercise I'm giving to you, but the ego goes, well, it's got to be more like, structured. Give me some. Give me, Do I take deep breaths? Do I, Any questions? How you going, Julie? Yeah? How's your leg?
I stuck it at the airport yesterday, so it's
Tisha?
yeah, but no, it's not.
And I'll remind you that everyone here has got mentors who work at Be Free, that their role is to support you and to give you a call once a month and just see how things are going. So in particular this month, give them a call, see how things are going. This is what I'm experiencing this month. Gaz, any final words from you?
Just good luck. Have a good month. Just stay present no matter what happens. Just stay in the area. That's okay.
Yeah. You're safe in presence. Well, you're always safe. But you can experience your safeness in presence. Hey? Yeah. Gift, present. All right, guys. Well, let's do at least 5 hugs before we wrap it up, and I'll see you guys next month. Enjoy your month.